Based off the roadmap for Operation Absolute Zero within Call of Duty Black Ops 4, there's seemingly three larger pieces of how the event itself will work. We had one being the launch, in which we got the brand new introduction of Outrider, the Contraband Stream, 2 new maps within the Black Ops Pass for MP. Then we ended up having some other stuff thrown in the mix that are smaller updates up until then, but we still have 2 of those things that are on the larger end of content updates coming up in the operation itself. The first one being Shamrock and Awe, which seemingly is going to be coming out this upcoming Tuesday by all indications, as we've seen so far, and we've already detailed that in full, so to spare you the full recap, it really just comes down to the event itself coming out on the Tuesday before St. Patrick's Day every time the past 2 years that the event was introduced, both in World War II as well as in Modern Warfare Remastered. While that's something that is more so a larger content update in the sense of what's detailed on the roadmap, being that we'll probably get a smaller scale stream of some sorts like the Barbarians event and the holiday ones and the Halloween event that we've seen so far, with the introduction of things like the Mini 14 and maybe even the Demo Hammer melee weapon, it's not the only thing that we still have to look forward to. So this Tuesday isn't the end of all that content, because while we may end up getting an actual title update for that one, we still really haven't discussed the full implications of the other part of the event that is still relatively untouched, not only in the information at hand, but also as to when this may end up happening. So in this video, we're going to be looking past the upcoming Shamrock and Awe event and looking towards the spring update and the Blackout Redacted event on the horizon, as it's perhaps one of the last larger things to come in Operation Grand Heist. So we're going to be talking about everything around that time period and what to expect. That said, firstly, let's start out with the Blackout Redacted event, because there are some things outside of this that we do want to talk about that will kind of meet up with everything when we start to talk about when to expect this. So there are a lot of smaller things on the horizon that we can maybe expect to be implemented into game that may not necessarily mess around with your day-to-day gameplay itself, but could have some implications on how the game itself overall is handled. So that includes things like new weapons added in, new equipment, LTM tracking, emote usage after wins, and other implementations such as a hardcore game mode. So to break these down here for you guys, let's start out with the more basic stuff. To my knowledge, I think that I've seen some comments actually addressing this already. I haven't come across them at all, but David Vonderhaar ended up saying that they'll be implementing the newer weapons in stashes and such as the time progresses throughout Blackout. They didn't want to do it initially as soon as the game in Operation Grand Heist completely dropped with that update, just so as to not inundate players with way too much stuff all at once, or so much that they would end up experiencing everything up front and then be burned out and not really feel like coming back. So that's something that is either already started or shall be starting coming up very soon in terms of seeing those newer weapons in stashes, in loot boxes, and so on and so forth. So with an update coming massively to Blackout on the horizon, that's something that it would not surprise me if that is fully implemented at that point. Additionally, talking about things that will eventually be rolled out, David Vonderhaar again said that they would end up having new equipment in there, and that seemingly came back to Zero's EMP grenade or the Disruptor grenade that we end up seeing in MP. Additionally, there's also something that has kind of perplexed me since the very beginning, is that if you take a look at Outrider in the trailer for Operation Grand Heist, her Sparrow is actually in Blackout, but that's not the case within Blackout right now, so that might be added in at some point. You end up having the Tactical Cap as that sort of quest line in which you have to get, I think it's 25 kills or 50 kills from above lifetime whenever you have that and finish the game with a cap in your inventory. So at that point, the Sparrow doesn't necessarily need to be in there, but it was showcased for a reason. So maybe it is added in and is another piece of equipment that we end up seeing later on down the line added into Blackout. That one is a little bit more up in the air and questionable. Outside of that, though, we end up seeing and mentioning once again that we'll see the limited time modes start to track a little further. Up until this point of Hot Pursuit, they actually ended up all getting thrown into the mix of a down but not out filter within your stats. So previously, before the update for Operation Grand Heist, if you played any of the limited time modes, they actually didn't count towards your wins in game. They counted on the back end, so if you had, say, the challenges for, I think the one victory challenge within Blackout was 150 total wins, you'd end up being able to see the discrepancy between what is showcased on your barracks and your leaderboards there, and also what is actually tracked by the game on the back end. So I think at one point I was about like 10 to 20 wins off from what my barracks showcased, but then as of Operation Grand Heist, it ended up getting fixed out, and the only thing that didn't count after that was Hot Pursuit. Matt Schrontz went on the record and said that this is something that is going to be fixed with an upcoming update, that they're going to eventually be adding in a Hot Pursuit and other limited time mode filter for this, so that it does showcase right there on your barracks and on your overall total victories, not just tracked on the back end. So with a larger update coming to Blackout again, I think that's probably a perfect time to see it all grouped in with one with this Blackout Redacted event. And the final thing to talk about really comes down to a more so whimsical thing here at this, but again, Matt Schrontz went on the record saying that emotes will be able to use after the victory section goes up. So you have those few split seconds where you can end up still walking around after you win a game, but you don't have the option to actually interact with your emote wheel. That's something that's going to be fixed out with the next title update, and again, may tie in with this one. But outside of the little smaller features and additions, the other big stuff that we can come back to that may very well be out of this Blackout Redacted event is firstly a hardcore mode, which is something that I am greatly interested in hearing more about, because at first glance, it may sound just like hardcore in terms of MP, where you die a lot faster, you don't have the ability to end up healing, and you don't have a HUD, which honestly could make for some really decent and interesting gameplay experiences within Blackout, and especially if you end up adding in a continuous and faster moving zone, similar to how we see it with Ambush, but without it stopping at all, not like setting up smaller zones to where that final zone will finally just go in and flows non-stop, but from the very beginning. I think that'd be cool. I think that was actually in Close Quarters Frenzy as well, if I'm not mistaken. But if you end up doing that with the limited health and the limited or lack thereof of healing and a HUD, that's these games may last 10 minutes max, which would be honestly really cool from a BR perspective, because a lot of it has a slower mid game and maybe even late game gets kind of slow up until the very final portions. So to have it all just be crazy and hectic and very much so watching your six, that'd be interesting. But now for the big part, the things that really make this an event, because all this kind of stuff can be added in on a smaller scale, but it wouldn't really require a title update. For all we know, a lot of this stuff may just be on a time gate in which it's already in the game, but hasn't really been thrown into the mix. We see that with playlist updates all the time. They're already in the game files. It just is something that at a certain point, they're activated. So this other stuff, though, actually is what makes the event an event. It's going to require a title update, it's going to change the map as a whole, and might actually be a drastic change up to how we play Blackout day to day. The first one being, my guess at some point, a Blackout map update that may reflect the spring update itself. It might actually bring some more color back to the leaves, because we see that we're still in that fall and winter one where there's a lot of brown and orange and dead stuff around the map. That might change back out to end up being a luscious green. I actually ended up seeing a clip from two of the same locations looking off into the distance, and just seeing the differences in the colors in the trees was actually pretty wild, but that's something that may end up reverting back now at that point. But one of the bigger things I'm more so interested in is that we might not see that as the primary focus overall, because we might be seeing Blackout go into a nighttime map. Blackout might actually be set at night for the upcoming event here within Operation Grand Heist, and we have a little bit that may point to this actually being the case, because it also leads into the idea that we may be getting another map update in terms of a new POI added in halfway through the event. That being the map of Alcatraz, or rather Alcatraz Island, Mob of the Dead, off in the distance somewhere in the ocean of the Blackout current map. Where that theory and idea comes from is the very tail end of the Operation Grand Heist trailer. It's that last second blink and you miss the entire moment type of deal, where there's a couple of different frames that flash players coming in, dropping in parachutes to what very much so resembles Alcatraz Island or Mob of the Dead. And this is something that is all done under the night sky. So if that happens, that of course is a massive breakaway from what we've known Blackout so far as being this more so bright and easy to view map that we've seen so far since the launch. But what if we told you this actually wasn't the first time that we may have seen a teaser for something coming off in that ocean off in the distance? Because if you take a look at the original blueprint, which showcased all the stakes around the map and also where eventually Ghost Town was added in, up in the northwest corner of that map, there is a little bit of a coffee stain, which a lot of players were thinking that might have been a teaser to begin with as well, which now looking back at it, seeing that we have something possibly added in into the ocean, well, that coffee ring may have actually been an indicator for what's coming up next. So we know of all these things that are still on the horizon, but the next big question, possibly the biggest, is when? If it's going to be a spring map update, it's something that brings in a whole ton of changes to the Blackout map, well, it's denoted as spring, and that's about it. We don't have any other indication here other than that. The first day of spring this year is March 20th. It could easily fall on that Tuesday before or after when spring actually comes around. So that leads us to maybe the dates of the 19th or the 26th. Now, the 26th isn't half a bad guess for two particular reasons. Firstly being that we have, by again, all indications showcasing that Shamrock and Awe may in fact end up launching here this upcoming Tuesday on the 12th. That would then fall in line with the 2-week marketing window that Activision usually likes to roll with in all Call of Duty marketing. So there's 2 weeks of that content to breathe, and especially with a week of exclusivity on the event coming up, it wouldn't launch 2 things on that 19th then, one for PlayStation 4 and then one for Xbox One and PC. To me, it just doesn't seem like that would happen here with this. So my gut is going with the 26th on that one firstly, but also it has a little bit of information we can cross-reference again that kind of points to the 26th once again. We end up seeing that by some recent indications, the new PlayStation 4 Black Ops Pass Zombies map may actually go live as well on the 26th. So that means that that is going to require a title update. And if a title update comes out on the 26th, well, it'd be tremendously efficient and the smartest move possible to add in other content updates at that same point. So whether or not we actually end up seeing them go live on the 26th, which I do think that will be the case, even if they do not, they should theoretically still be in the game at that point to come and launch shortly thereafter. So that'll be something to consider as well. And to kind of drive the point home even further, the 26th is still 19 days away. With 54 days left on the operation, or 53 I guess, because 54 takes us to the actual update itself of the next operation. When we take a look at it, if we consider the 26th as being when that next content drop may happen in terms of a map update, well, it just so happens to be the halfway point of Operation Grand Heist. Half of the event being split up focused on that new POI of Ghost Town, half of which also then being focused on Alcatraz Island or Mob of the Dead, coming at a later point. So to me, it seems like we have set in stone here, or everything but set in stone and finally etched in there, as the 26th being our date of when we should look out for this Blackout Redacted event, and also these other map changes, and also the Zombies map overall. So that said, that's where we're going to wrap it up here at this. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think that the 26th of March is a decent time in which we can expect this to come? Do you think it's going to come at a different date? And what do you expect here out of this? Do you think that what we talked about is a good hefty amount of stuff to come in that Blackout Redacted event? Or are you looking forward to something we may not have discussed? Whatever it may be, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, MP, Blackout, Zombies. We got you covered, the best of updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. So if any of it interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. You guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram. Those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically on both those. So if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. Well, that's it. Now, thank you guys all so much for watching. Might as well express out. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.